Welcome to the MVPreneur podcast. Have you ever considered leaving your current job to become an independent professional working with a Power Platform or Dynamics 365? Join me as I speak with my fellow MVP colleagues who have made the jump and now earn a living as independents, working on a variety of projects delivering Microsoft business application services, training, and subject matter expertise. Hear about their successes and their failures, and maybe be inspired to make your own jump. Or maybe you've decided that staying in your current position is the right decision for you. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. All right, everyone, we're back again. Another episode of Going Independent. Today I have Andrew Bibby from the UK. And Andrew, I just want to kind of, if you can introduce yourself and then also sort of say how you could have made the jump into being an independent.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me on. So my name's Andrew Bibby. I'm a Dynamics 365 consultant in the UK. Actually, I do more less consultancy on the Dynamics actual product now and more sort of project advisory stuff and project assurance, that kind of thing. So I've been doing Dynamics since before it was Dynamics. In 2007, I started with version 3. And I kind of, should we get into like how I got into Dynamics and then go into...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure. I think this helps.
I was a web developer, pretty much, doing ASP.NET, and then I started doing some work for a company that did Dynamics as it was, and they needed somebody to build extensions for a particular customer, and I kind of got into it that way, and I didn't really know very much about Dynamics. I'd heard of it, or Microsoft CRM, and I started to think, actually, this is a pretty cool product. You know, it does all these things really easily, like, you know, building forms and security model and all that kind of stuff, all the things that I ended up doing over and over and over again with web development projects.
Yeah.
And I kind of, after I'd done that for about a year with this company, I thought, and I knew that Microsoft was investing hugely into Dynamics. I thought, well, why not specialize? Rather than being quite a generic web developer, which there are loads of people around doing that kind of thing, why not specialize in something a bit more specific? And it's worked brilliantly since, really. I have not been out of work other than voluntarily in the last 12 or 13 years. So, yeah, it's gone great.
Yeah, I think that's the common theme that's happening amongst other people I'm talking to, especially to go independent, to be a freelancer is a lot easier because there is so much work out there for, you know, Microsoft Business Solutions and Dynamics and the Power Platform.
Yeah, it is always, I think, difficult to take the leap. I've been talking to somebody else in the UK. I hope she won't mind me saying, Megan Walker, who is recently sort of transitioning out of partner consulting and into being independent.
We're going to have Megan on, I think, probably one of the last episodes because she's just in the middle of transition. So it's going to be we're probably going to record within her first few days of being independent. So it's going to be an interesting perspective there as well.
And that's great because I've sort of been talking to her and she's been asking me questions about this and that and tax and accounting and things. And it's really brought back to me that journey from being permanent or a contractor into independent consulting and all the things that you pick up along the way. So that's been really interesting. But yeah, I've actually been, I guess, independent for a long time. Actually, before I did Dynamics, I started out in 2001, pretty much. I had a little break when I went to do a permanent job, and just after, it was around that sort of time for a few years. But I've never really liked working for other people, to be honest. I've got this like rebellious streak in me where I would prefer to decide what I'm doing. But I did a series of long-term contracts, so sort of one job at a time, but for different companies, all with Dynamics, pretty much, for the last dozen or so years. And then it's only been actually in the last probably 5 years where I've done more variety, and in particular in the last year, now I have multiple customers on the go at once, which I'm really, really enjoying. It's great to do big projects. I never really intended to carry on doing big projects, but that's kind of how it turned out. And, it's hard to turn down work sometimes, particularly if you're invested in the project.
Yep.
But actually switching to doing multiple projects, I've done 5 or 6 projects in the last year at the same time, overlapping at least. That variety has been really refreshing. It's kind of re-energized me for doing what we do. So, yeah, that's been really good.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you said you're on big ones before, so you're doing like synchronously, meaning you do one, then do the next one, and now you're running like parallel with a handful of projects.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, which I've always thought was more proper independent consulting, and I've wanted to do for a few years, but it never quite worked out in terms of the jobs that come along. Because obviously, if work comes along and they want you the majority of the time, then it's kind of hard to turn that down sometimes.
Yeah, no. The one thing I've had to, one of the biggest skills I think anybody going independent is learning how to say no.
Yeah.
That's something when I started, I didn't say no to anything. It got to be too much, which is odd because I know other industries, sometimes you're scrambling to find that next job. And now you're sort of like scrambling to turn stuff away and get that right job going. And I don't want to make it sound, I think you'd probably agree, don't want to make it sound like it's, they're knocking down your door. Although I've talked to Marius on an earlier episode. And for anybody who's watching these now remembers, he said, you could take a cardboard sign and write, we'll do Dynamics work on the street in Oslo and someone will pick you up and hire you. So.
Wow. Yeah, I think, he's not only is he very good, but there's also such a shortage of people in Norway.
Worldwide, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's true. I don't know whether it's more focused in Norway. I've spoken to Marlin Martinez, the talent MVP. And yeah, there doesn't seem to be anybody around like doing Dynamics or consultancy.
So, it's interesting because I know talking to different people around the world and their areas they work in. So how is it in the UK to set up to be an independent, to be a freelancer? Is it fairly, is the environment good, or is it a little bit more of an anomaly?
Yeah. No, actually, it's really, really common. So lots of businesses either have permanent employees or they'll take on what they call contractors in the UK, which is a temporary amount of work for months or sometimes years to get particular niche skills in. And that's really, really common. Probably 20%, maybe 15-20% of the job market is contractors. So it's really straightforward to do. The complexities around setting up a company, which is like a limited company in the UK, limited liability, and the tax and accountancy and everything, that is a bit difficult. And it takes quite a long time to learn, but obviously there's always accountancy services out there. There's always people that can advise you, and that's a good way to go if you're starting out.
Right. So do you work with a bookkeeper, an accountant as well? Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's actually everybody does. A
specialist freelance or contractor accountancy that deals with basically IT type contractors. Because there is specific tax law around particularly IT consulting in the UK, and there's just quite a lot to know about setting up a company, setting up bank accounts, how you do the tax properly and everything else, and accounts properly. So I much prefer to, I know some of it, I much prefer to give all the the hard stuff to somebody else.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm totally with you. It's not my thing either. Cool. It's interesting. So the projects you work on, are you typically doing these remotely, or are you on site? Like sort of what's your working day like that way?
Yeah, probably in the last few years, it's mainly been on site with customers. That's what they expect. And that's worked out sort of geographically for me. So they've been quite nearby. It does depend a little bit on the phase of the project. Now I do work from home a fair bit,
Mm.
but yeah, obviously if I'm doing, meetings and workshops and things like that, that's generally on site. And at the moment, that's kind of one of the benefits and negatives of being truly independent and having several customers at once. Is that I am spread around now. Like yesterday, I was in Newcastle, which is about 250 miles away from me. So that was a good drive home last night. And
Yeah,
then,
wow.
I'm in Wales, which is about 70 miles away, and I'm in London, which is about 100 miles away. So, I'm traveling around quite a bit, but I like the travel. So that is one thing about being independent. I mean, we talked a little bit about, you don't have to take every job that comes along, but actually these are jobs that are interesting to me,
Right.
that I want to do. And actually it's pros and cons. You're away from home a bit, you're working on site, but also it's interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's cool. Um, so going independent, is there any kind of lessons learned or things you would do differently if you had to do it all over again?
Um, it's actually going back quite a long way, for me, but I don't, I, I've always wanted to work like this. I can't actually imagine working for somebody for full time anymore.
Mm.
Always wanted to sort of, even if it's only in my head, feel like I'm the master of my own destiny. Lessons learned. Probably should have got a better accountant sooner.
Oh, okay.
Because you can go around and try out different services, and if they don't work for you, but yeah, they can be such a big help that I think that for me in the UK, that's a fundamental choice, is choosing an accountant that you feel comfortable with, that gives you the services that can help you. Um, yeah, I mean, even things like personal things like getting a mortgage and things like that, they can make that process more simple and more straightforward as an independent consultant, which can be a bit tricky otherwise.
Right.
Lessons learned, probably to say no more often. I actually did some work for a partner, an implementation partner in the UK, and I worked on multiple projects for them, probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 projects for them, which was good because it had that variety, but it was through one partner. And actually I was working from home a lot at that time, actually, which can be a bit of a lonely life, I'm sure
Yep.
you know. And I probably stayed there too long. I
Okay.
probably should have just called a day on that one a couple of
Right.
years in, and gone somewhere else. It is that thing about once you have a contract or projects to work on, it's difficult to make the decision to walk away, because
Yeah.
obviously you have bills to pay. You don't know where the next job's coming, and so that, I think, particularly in the market as it is, with the lack of skilled people and the amount of projects that there are going on, I think just learning to listen to your brain,
Right.
listen to your internal monologue to say, actually, am I happy? And if you're
Mm.
not happy, that's the time to look somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. That. Yeah. Now you talked earlier about that you're doing more kind of project management, advisory, kind of coaching, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting take, because I mean, like, I think there's a lot of, and from a developer background, that's also very interesting. So I assume then, so you're working with other folks to actually, they'll do the hands-on work, and you're guiding
Yes.
them, or?
I'm kind of depends on the customer, but I'm
Mm.
doing different services basically. So I went from developer background, which is now going back quite a few years, into that more traditional, okay, now I'm a analyst, programmer, architect, solution architect, and probably got to the point where I was doing solution architecture and actually decided, is this something that I want to carry on doing for a long
Mhm.
time? But what I've always seen is, actually, there's 2 things. Customers don't know a lot about Dynamics, or
Right.
about business applications. Generally, they don't tend to have a lot of knowledge in-house, at least the
Mhm.
ones that I deal with, obviously. And also sometimes they get a bit of a rough deal from partners, and partners maybe provide solutions that are not best practice or not future focused and things like that. So about 5 years ago, I switched to working with customers to provide those that project assurance. So looking at things, the work that the partners are doing, and is it best practice? Is it what the customer needs? Have they understood requirements properly? All that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of that interface between the customer and the partner. So like a translator almost. So it works both ways. I can help the partner understand the customer as well. And then also to help upskill your internal teams about what Dynamics is, how Dynamics projects run, because they do have some particular idiosyncrasies that customers are not generally aware of. The types of skills they need in a project team that will then pick up the solution going forward, be able to maintain it themselves, and training on that side as well. So
awesome. Yeah, so your customers are actually end customers of Dynamics, and you're not working through partners.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really cool way to approach things with that, because that way, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, there's great partners out there I've worked with, and there's some other partners that are kind of
yeah. Things are much better in the last couple of years. I think partners maybe raised their game, maybe due to competition in the UK at least. But yeah, I do think customers, they just don't know what to ask for sometimes.
That's true. Yeah.
And they end up getting what they ask for, and maybe that's not the right thing for them. But exactly, there are good partners and bad partners. I've actually just been through a round of, I've been helping a customer select a new partner, and they've been through the tender process, and we looked at 8 or 9 partners in the UK, and we shortlisted actually 5 of them, which was quite a long shortlist, and I've just been through that process, and you can really see actually the variety of solutions, the variety of services that are provided, but actually the people that are kind of the top of that shortlist do provide excellent, high quality service, very customer focused, benefits focused, and interested in not just the implementation of the software, which I think is a key thing. They're interested in actually how do we embed this within a business, and that's something that I've seen change over the last couple of years. Actually, partners being much more focused on the success of a customer rather than just we're going to build something for you and then walk away.
Oh, that's cool. And then so you then as an independent, trying to stick to the theme of what we're talking about, but that, so you help facilitate that and kind of be that intermediary, which is great, because I think from someone understanding both sides, I've seen I mean, how many times have we been in a project where the customer says, well, we don't even know what to ask.
We don't know what we don't know. I hear that all the time. Yeah, I think, from the way I work with customers is generally because they have a lack of knowledge. They don't, if they're doing a partner selection process, they won't know the questions to ask to establish a particular partner's experience or their approach. And so, I can bring that to the table. Obviously, I've been through a lot of Dynamics projects on the partner side and also customer side. So that's, I'm using that experience, which seems to be going pretty well.
Awesome. Very cool. So and then in terms of, right now you're an independent, I believe you work by yourself.
Yeah.
Have you ever in your journey kind of considered taking on employees and growing the business, or do you like being the independent?
Yeah, I think I really have. And that's actually something I'm considering at the moment. What I've always struggled with is I'm a bit of a bastard, probably, if I can put it like that. In that I like things done in a certain way. I have what I think are very high standards, and I don't meet many people that aren't already doing their own thing, have their own businesses, actually, that I would think I'd like to employ. And that's probably comes off sounding a bit arrogant, but I always want to provide a really, really good service. And I guess your options are try and find somebody that already does that, and that you think you can work with, that is available, or train somebody into that. So that's an option I'm thinking about at the moment. Right. Yeah, I have been around that loop a few times. I do like the flexibility of just being on my own, making my own decisions. Um, but yeah, I think in order to grow the business at some point, if I want to, I don't still want to be doing this on my own in 10 years' time, I don't think, is where I'm at the moment. So I would like to, yeah, come up with ways that I can work with other people. I've actually discussed kind of partnerships with a couple of other consultants in the UK, which I think is maybe a route to go, like a co-op kind of club together and work on a project together.
You're the third or fourth person I've talked to that's sort of looking at that as an option versus hiring staff, is collaborating with other folks, kind of, because there's no longer term kind of commitment, right? You're
yeah. I mean, that's a stepping stone to kind of employing other people. But it's I think that you have a finite resource in that you can only work a certain number of hours a day. And the only way to grow a business is to have either more people or sell services that can be sold when you're not around, you know. So I do feel right now that I need to make some decisions about where I want my business to go.
Interesting. Cool. Just a few more things before we completely wrap up. So you've been an MVP now, what, 2 or 3 years? I think.
Yeah, 2017.
Same year as I was, I think.
Yeah, just over 2 years actually. Just looking at my certificate.
Yeah, because I remember when you got awarded, I thought, wait a minute, I thought Andrew Bibby already was an MVP. So, have you found that in terms of your independent consulting work, whatever, that's helped you in any way?
Yeah, I think it has. Maybe not for the right reasons, or not all the right reasons. There's a certain amount of, I guess, kudos, obviously, that comes with the MVP award. I'm very happy to have it, obviously. And it gives a certain visibility too. And it's an assumed level of, I guess, sort of quality and expertise.
Yes,
if you walk into a room, I don't really like to announce myself as an MVP, because apart from anything, most people don't know what that is.
Right, fair enough.
And I did work with a customer a little while back where they would kind of bring me into a meeting and roll me in as the MVP and say, "Here's Andrew, he's our MVP." And that kind of makes me cringe a bit internally. I'd rather be known for doing a good job and being, helpful and actually being an MVP. So I guess it does work. It's one of those intangible things where it's quite hard to know what other people's opinions are of you, without directly asking them, or what their impression is of you, say from LinkedIn or from from Twitter or speaking. But yeah, obviously it doesn't hurt. I don't know. How have you found it?
Oh no, for me, the biggest, the one thing about the MVP award that's given me is the network of individuals, of the community.
Yeah.
So I know and looking at the Dynamics Power Platform community now, I think it's already very strong. So you don't even need that MVP award to kind of get into the door with that.
Yeah.
Because if you're stuck on a problem or anything, you have a whole community of experts that you can call upon, because at the end of the day, with the Dynamics Business Solutions, you can't know everything. There's just no way.
And I think as an independent, you're absolutely right. That's one of the biggest benefits for me as well, is having those guys that you can call on and they can call on you. Whereas if you're on your own, if you are independent, you don't have anybody else to necessarily bounce ideas off. So that is really useful.
Yeah, that to me is the number one thing. Is the networking. So just sort of one last thing too, if anybody else is going independent, is there any kind of books or resources or things like that you could recommend?
I'm just trying to think what I talked through with Megan. A lot of it is very UK focused. So there is, for example, an organisation in the UK called IPSE, which is Independent Professionals and Self-Employed, or something like that. Anyway, it's they represent independent people in the UK, and that's a huge number of people. That's hundreds of thousands of people, and it's a membership organisation. I want to say a little bit like a union, but it's not quite. But it is a really good resource for if you're starting out. Lots of kind of beginner guides, lots of things like contract templates. That's something that is a bit difficult to get into, is, actually coming up with legal documentation, things like that, and also things like insurance. They really help. They provide a service that sets up specific types of insurances for independent people in the UK. But yeah, in terms of books, I always find books on these types of subjects go out of date very quickly. So I haven't probably read a book on freelancing or anything since I started. But yeah, I think it is important to get a good accountant that you're happy with, that does a wide range of services that are useful to you, and also insurance, proper stuff, proper bank account, proper company organization, insurances like professional liability insurance. These are all very important, and they demonstrate a certain maturity in your business as well to customers.
Yeah, for sure.
So cool. I don't have any specific resources other than probably IPSI in the UK.
No, yeah, and we'll get when we publish this, I'll get the show notes and get the link for that for anybody else in the UK that can look into that. And I'm sure there's other organizations worldwide that are very similar. Yeah. So definitely appreciate the chat today, Andrew. I think this is really good. So the one last question I kind of end with this: if anybody else is watching this, are you available for contracts, gigs, or any kind of work, and can they reach out to you for that?
Yeah, hey, why not? I'm actually finishing up 2 projects in the next couple of weeks, and so yes, I am available in probably February time. I have some time available. Okay. So yeah, get in touch by all means. Okay, shout to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or
Okay, perfect. All right,
and hopefully.
Cool. Awesome. All right, Andrew, have yourself an awesome day. And again, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Nick. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, cool.